and welcome back to the channel, guys. So I think that you guys enjoyed the review slash playtest of the Yonex VCORE line that I did, namely the 100, 98 and 95. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll put a link in the description down below. But because you liked it, and as I promised in the previous video, this time I'm gonna do the full review of the Yonex VCORE Pro line, and I'm gonna start with the VCORE Pro 97H, which stands for heavy, and I believe that is the racket that Stan Wawrinka uses on tour. So really looking forward to that one. I also wanted to say a big thank you for supporting the channel. You guys have been watching, liking and subscribing. There's a good growth in the channel lately, so I'm very grateful for the support. I'm always happy to answer all of your questions, your comments, and just build this community of tennis fans. So thank you, and let's get to it. Alright, we are back with another racket demo, and I know I said in the introduction that I was really looking forward to playing with that one, but boy, that racket was just hard, man. It was really heavy, and I think it was maybe a combination of playing in high temperature. In Las Vegas, it was about 98 degrees when we started playing, and then playing with this heavy racket, that probably was a little bit of a shock to my body to begin with. And you can see that my footwork is also a little bit sluggish, so all these things combined made me not play as well. But we played an hour and a half, and so I feel like I got a pretty good feel for the racket. And before we get started, make sure that you watch until the end, because I'm actually interviewing Jack, my practice partner, because he's been using that VCORE Pro 97H for many years, and he's very knowledgeable about tennis rackets and strings. So make sure you watch until the end, and thank you, Jack, for sharing your inputs. Alright, let's get this review started by going over the specs. So the number that follows the name of the racket always refers to the head size. So for this one, that would be a 97 square inches. The length is 27 inches, and that's standard for adult rackets. The strung weight is 12.3 ounces. For reference, if you want to know the unstrung static weight of the racket, that means before it's strung, usually a set of string is about 0.6 ounces. So the unstrung weight of this racket would be at around 11.7 ounces. So that is definitely heavy for modern rackets. My Wilson Pro Staff 97 weighs at 11.1 ounces unstrung. So the weight is significantly different, and you're definitely gonna feel it once you start playing with a stick. Let's move on to the balance now. These three numbers actually mean the same thing. They're just displayed in different units. So this racket is 7 points headlight. What that means is most of the weight is located in the handle of the racket, which is going to make the racket feel very solid, especially on static shots, such as the returns and the volleys. The balance directly affects the swing weight. A swing weight, as opposed to static weight, is how heavy the racket feels like when you swing it. And so with these swing weights, the Yonex VCORE Pro 97H will feel extremely solid at contact if you swing it well, but it will be also hard to maneuver. So I think that if you have a sound technique and great footwork, and you can sustain it for a few hours, then you'll be rewarded by this racket. But if you can't, then you'll be punished. Next one is stiffness, and stiffness is just a measurement of how flexible a racket is. The lower the number, the more flexible the racket. Flexible rackets bend more, which leads to increased energy loss and reduced power. With a stiffness rating of 61, the VCORE Pro 97H will be considered a flexible racket, which provides a softer feel at impact and would therefore be easier on your arm. And before I move on, I just want to take a few seconds to thank you for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe to the channel, because it really is the best way to support it. Thank you. And next up is the beam width, and that represents the thickness of the racket. The thicker the beam, the more powerful the racket. The VCORE Pro 97H has an all-around 21mm beam width, which is considered narrow and therefore more suited to advanced players who can provide their own power. And then you have the composition, and that is just the list of materials used to manufacture the rackets. All the standard modern rackets right now are kind of made out of the same stuff, with a lot of graphite. I think the rest are not very important, besides the very last line, which is the string pattern. The string pattern simply refers to how many strings you have in the mains and how many you have in the crosses. So here we got 16 strings in the main and 19 in the crosses, which is the most common for standard rackets. The other popular string pattern is 18 by 20. So the difference here is that a 16 by 19 string pattern has less strings overall. So that means the space between the strings is larger, and therefore strings can move a little bit more, and that creates more depth, power, and spin. And the denser 18 by 20 string pattern offers more control and a lower launch angle, and is therefore more suited for players who hit with flatter shots and don't hit with as much spin. Alright, so that's it for the specs. Now let me just tell you quickly how I felt playing with this racket. To put it simply, the swing weight of the racket is just too high. It would take me a long time to get used to it, so I don't think that it is the most suitable for my game at the moment. But if you're a strong player with good footwork that can hit through the ball with a good amount of racket head speed, definitely give this racket a shot, because when you make good contact, it is a pure joy to hit with this racket. So this is it from my own perspective on the Yonex VCORE Pro 97H, and now let's hear it from Jack. Alright Jack, we Alright, this is not Jack's first appearance on the channel, by the way. I think it's the third or something, but how long have you been playing with this racket?
Coming up on 2 years now.
What strings do you use?
I've used plenty of different ones, from Yonex's Polytour Pro, the Polytour Rev as well. Right now I'm using the Element, Luxilon Element,
Yep.
Savage, and Adrenaline, also from Luxilon. I just use mainly poly.
Yeah.
The softer poly feels nicer when hitting the balls.
Right.
It's such a heavy racket that you need a little bit of give, so I don't string it super tight. I string it at probably a 47.
47, okay.
That's what I strung it at this time.
Sure.
I've tried it all. I've tried 55 and it tore my arm into shreds, but 47's a good middle ground to kind of feel the ball still,
Yeah.
but still have the power from the racket.
And then what did you use before that? Right before?
Right before, I was using the RF signature.
The RF, okay.
Yeah, so same head size, just
Right.
heavy.
Yeah.
About 10 grams heavier.
Okay.
A little bit of a different beam width, a little bit of a
Yes.
different flexibility.
Okay.
I prefer that this one's a little bit more flexible compared
Right.
to the RF.
Yes.
But it's still quite a beast to lug around.
Right.
You really have to just time everything correctly. It's kind of both a power and a timing type of ordeal.
Timing. What do you think is the main difference between the two?
The two main differences is going to be the balance point and the stiffness of the racket.
Okay.
But the stiffness is one that's not shown on the rackets. You have to do a little bit of
Yes,
investigating.
yes.
The RF is a lot
Like 70,
stiffer.
sometimes 70.
Not even.
Not
It's, I think, 66 or 63, I want to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
But then this one's in the high 50s.
In the high 50s, okay.
High 50s, low 60s, which
Right.
gives a little bit of give.
Right.
So it's not as like you're lugging around almost a metal brick with the
Right.
RF. This is more of a flexible brick.
Yes. What kind of player would want to play with this racket?
Stan's game is the perfect for it.
Okay.
He's not like
Big
a Nadal. Yeah, he's not like a Nadal or Joker that use the kind of acceleration and kind of like that slingshot forehand that like Sinner is using right now.
Right.
It's more of that you're getting your entire body set for this forehand and then letting it go.
Okay.
Same thing with the backhand. It's hard to imagine this being used with the two hand because of like the weight and things like that.
Right.
So you're kind of like locking yourself in there. When you have the one hander, you can time it a little bit easier. And with the weight behind it, it just goes. It's
Right.
great. Yeah.
So I reviewed the VCORE line before that. What do you think is the main difference between the VCORE Pro line and then the VCORE line?
The VCORE is more of the updated game of tennis. The VCORE Pro, just compared to the VCORE line, the VCORE has a slightly thicker beam, so it's more stable through the air.
Gotcha.
So for people that don't really want to lug around an absolute beast of a racket, it's a really great option. It's great stability, great flexibility. If you have arm issues or anything like that, the flexibility in the arm with a little bit of weight makes you play a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You're not really stressing that the arm is going to fall off. It's more of controlled, good pop off the racket. It's a really solid one, yeah.
And what about the serve with the VCORE Pro?
The hardest thing ever.
Is it,
Like if something's off and you have a bad toss and you're trying to correct it,
it's killing you.
Impossible. Because it's going to fly somewhere. We kind of experienced it today with my serve. I couldn't see the ball sometimes. I would throw a serve at it and it's hitting back fence or in the bottom of the net.
Right.
It's quite a hard racket to serve around because of the weight. Give me a slightly lighter racket like a VCORE 98 or a EZO 98. It's going to be a lot easier to get that snap through the air.
Okay.
Which is going to just assist the serve.
Thank you for playing, Jack.
Of course.
And I'll see you in the next video.